So I do these webinars every month, and the goal of these webinars is to keep you as a realtor moving forward, applying what you've learned at the Gateway Seminar. At the Marketing Mastery Gateway, the goal is to really help you build a marketing-driven real estate career, and that's the path that we really want to get you going down. I also want to make sure that you don't feel isolated. So many agents tell me, Greg, after I leave the seminar, I feel like I'm going out there and I'm sort of on my own. I'm the only one in my area that's really working on personal marketing. The next thing I want to do is make sure that you hold yourself accountable for making regular little progress. And then we'll share some new ideas, information, and hopefully build a community over time to keep you moving forward. Today, my book of the month for this month is a wonderful book called Just Listen. And I will tell you, I really believe that listening is such an important thing. It'll help you become a better salesperson, but a better person, a better father, a better spouse, a better person in every aspect of your life if you can get yourself to actually listen. Now, it's not easy. You actually have to be invested and willing to calm that brain inside of your own mind down so that you stop listening to those voices. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But this is an outstanding book. As always, I would love your feedback. Did you buy the book? What did you think of it? Thoughts, positive, negative, either way. I want to start off today by talking about the gremlin that stops so many of us from really accomplishing and living the life of our dreams. I call the gremlin that little inner voice that holds us back and fights change, that tells us all kinds of things. The gremlin tells us, gosh, if you do this, you might fail. You could look stupid. What if somebody reads your brochure and they hate you? Or we say, gosh, this is too hard. I've got to put myself out there emotionally. I don't know what niche I want to go after. I don't have all the answers. I can't see all the steps clearly. And nobody else is doing this, and I can't do it. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too this way, I'm too that way. I just can't change. And the gremlin is constantly putting these little seeds of doubt into our brain. And I want you to realize you've got to attack the gremlin. Realize that you can challenge the gremlin if you just challenge your thoughts. Ask yourself, is that really true? Am I really too old, too young, too this way? Others have done this. And ask yourself, what would it feel like if I actually did it? Gosh, it would feel great. I'd be able to make this. I'd be able to live the life that I really wanted to. And then ask yourself some of those things like, gosh, if I tried this and failed, what's the worst thing that will happen? And when we challenge the gremlin's arguments, logic can't hold up to reality. And I found we just got to be willing to fight the gremlin. Now, eventually the gremlin gets a little quieter in our brain. But I want you to know the gremlin's never going to go away no matter what you've accomplished, what you've done. There's always those seeds of self-doubt that tend to crop up. So you've got to fight that gremlin continuously for the rest of your life. And it's so important to keep that in mind. Today, I want to cover a variety of different topics, and we're sort of going to jump around. I want to start off with reminding you of that if you want to mess your life up, remember that you could do it, you should do it, and then if you want to mess it all up, just don't do it. And this will guarantee you that you will not accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, that you'll mess up everything in your life. Now, the subtlety, just like I talked about in the seminar, is of the single day. It's what trips most people up. We don't look at today and say, gosh, I can make a huge difference. I can change my life today. And the reality is life change happens subtly. It's little steps. It's little things, doing little things, making little progress each and every day that makes a huge impact on the direction of your life. And so I want you to remind yourself of that as we go through today. Now, the way to really make progress is to break things down into small, doable next action steps. And I really want you to think this through. If you look at a huge project, you say, okay, how do I break this apart? And you break it into chunks say, okay, this is the first, 10%, and okay, if I want to get started, what's the first 5 steps? And now what's the first step? And okay, in that step, what do I need? What are the actions I need to do? What's the research I need to have? And if you break things down into small, doable next action steps, it's easy to make progress. Now, here's the key. Make sure that the next action step is doable. So a lot of people don't break things down into small enough tasks so they aren't doable. They'll say, gosh, I need to change the oil in my car, or I need to change the tires in my car. And they keep procrastinating on it. And so they even write a to-do list, change tires in car. What's the next action step? Well, the next action step would be to actually call and make an appointment. But you say, well, I don't have the phone number. Well, then the next action step would be getting the phone number to make an appointment. So now, instead of writing a to-do list of change tires in car, on your to-do list, write, look up phone number for Ford A Tires or wherever you're going to get your tires changed. Now, you're stuck in line. You pull out your cell phone and you research the number. Now you write it down. Now the next action step is call and make the appointment. Now, it seems like a little difference there, but the reality is that if you look at an action step on your to-do list and you can't do it directly, like, oh, I'm going to go out and change my tires, then you've got to break it down to a smaller action step, to a next action step that's doable. And I will tell you, if you look at the things you've got to do, and conceptually they're big, you will procrastinate. You'll put things off because you don't know the next action step to take. But if you just think about it and break it down into action steps and say, okay, what is an action step that I can do? And then even if you just make a small action step every day, you're going to make progress. So, think about how to break things down into those little tiny action steps. That alone will make a huge difference for you. Then take a small step forward every day. Think about the next thing that you really want to work on. What's the most important thing for you to be working on from the seminar? Whether it's completing your brochure, or getting the buyer's questionnaire out there, getting it completed, using it with your buyers, getting the listing service program up and running, picking your niche, whatever it is, pick the single next thing that you think, gosh, I think this is the most important, and don't sweat too much about, I know people say, well, which is the most important, this or that? Pick one, and then just move forward. And it will make a huge difference for you if you just get started. So pick the next thing you want to work on, and now start breaking it down into little action steps, and then just say, gosh, let me take a couple steps every day. Don't overwhelm yourself. You've got busy, challenging lives. You've got a lot of things to do. The key is to break it down into little action steps that you can make progress on every single day. Once you're moving forward with just making progress every single day, I also want you to become fully engaged. And fully engaging with your clients, with the people in your life, is so critically important. And unfortunately, most of us aren't fully present for our own lives. We're so busy, we're living in the future, the past, that we aren't fully engaged in being here right now in this moment and saying, how can I make sure I get the most out of this moment right now? As you're listening to me, try and put out everything out of your mind of all the other things you've got to go on. And just say, you know what, let me be here and say, focused on this aspect. If we spend huge time connecting with our prospects, it'll make a huge difference. Unfortunately, most of us connect only at a superficial level. We go through the motions, we're courteous, we tend to think of ourselves as salespeople, but we don't really connect at a human level that makes a huge difference in the quality of their life. In fact, research shows that most of us only listen to the first 20% of what we hear, And even then, we're only listening to the things that we are listening for, that are reinforcing our already predetermined beliefs about what this person wants, needs. What we start doing is thinking about what we're going to say. And I want you to get beyond that. The first thing I want you to do is when you're having a conversation with anyone, stop making any assumptions about them, about what they're saying. And unfortunately, this is so easy for us to do. We look at somebody. We judge how they look. We judge what they're wearing, their weight, their age. And if we can just learn to stop making assumptions and just say, you know what, this is a fellow human being. I have no idea what's going on in their life, and I'm just going to listen, give them 100% of my attention right now. It will make a huge difference. I mean, think about the assumptions that get us into so much trouble. Maybe you've had an assistant at some point in your real estate career that's not always been totally dependable. And you show up on a wonderful Wednesday morning and you say, hey, are the papers for this closing ready to go on Friday? And they look at you and say, well, no, they're not quite ready. What do you instantly assume? You instantly assume all kinds of things about this person. Oh, they're lazy. They aren't getting things done. I'm going to have to do it. And we start making a whole bunch of assumptions. We probably go and start complaining. It starts wrecking our day. If instead of making an assumption, you could just stop yourself and say, well, tell me, why aren't they ready? And just listen to what they're actually saying. They will probably tell you things that will blow you away. They might say, gosh, you know, I'm so sorry, it's not ready. You know, I know in the past I've been a little late, but, you know, I was working on it last night at home, getting it ready, and my grandfather called me. My grandmother, who has Alzheimer's, had a stroke and is now in the hospital. My grandfather needed me to take him to the hospital. My parents passed away. I'm the only one that can do this. I didn't get back until 7 o'clock. I came directly to the office. I've been working on it, and it'll be ready in 20 minutes. I am so sorry. And all of a sudden, we think, oh my goodness. See, once we understand what's really going on, and most of us don't know, we make assumptions. Oh, they're lazy, they're bad. We make those assumptions about our clients. And we don't really even take the time to understand the story, what's going on in their life. And I found that when we can stop making assumptions and actually find out the truth, or find out what's happening from their perceptual basis, it makes a huge difference. And I found more often than not, the assumptions we make get us into trouble. This especially becomes true with our personal lives. In our brains, we think we know our spouse, our kids. And now, if our kids are a little bit late, if they're doing something that we have an assumption, we make all these stories and we blow them out of proportion. And if we could just stop doing that, stop making assumptions, we can be more fully present and at least give people the opportunity to listen or to actually express their side of the story. And that will make a huge difference for you. Also, when we stop making assumptions, we stop reinforcing this mental construct that we have. And the research shows that most people listen only to what they want to hear. They end up blocking out all the rest of the information, the things that are the mitigating factors. And that's never a good thing to do. I found that with our clients, this is easy to do. They say they're looking for this, this, and this, and we come up with a mindset of what they're looking for, and we miss huge parts of their conversation, and then we wonder why they aren't loyal, and we make assumptions about them. And I want you to just stop doing that. Now, I know this is hard to do. I've been working on this for years, trying to stop making assumptions. And it's hard. And it's the hardest with people that you really love and care about, because we bring all of their past baggage, history, into every conversation that we have. But the more you can sort of set that aside and truly engage and say, I need to be fully present, listen to what's going on right here, right now, it'll make a huge difference for you. I've also found that that's why using a buyer's questionnaire is so incredibly useful. I found that you get more value from a buyer's questionnaire because when you see it on paper, you're less likely to filter it. As you're reading it, you'll actually be able to understand what they're wanting more effectively. And this is one of the things that helps me really realize that we don't listen on a regular basis, because if people tell me what they want, I don't have any way of correcting over time. If somebody writes it down on a questionnaire, now I go show them what I think they want. I come back and say, well, gosh, it didn't seem like that went well. I relook at their questionnaire, and all of a sudden I say, well, gosh, I missed this and this and this. And it makes a huge difference for that. Now, when your clients talk, I want you to start concentrating on what they're saying. Now, this is the essence of the listing presentation that works every time, working with buyers, building buyer loyalty, doing so many different things, is when you concentrate on what your clients say. Now, when you're listening, here's the simple little technique that I want you to use. When somebody is done, say, listen, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, and then paraphrase whatever you say, whatever you heard. And this doesn't feel natural, but I will tell you, it changes the relationships, the dynamics dramatically. Because somehow, when you paraphrase what you've heard, you'll see people being validated. It feels, oh, gosh, you understood me. You get us. Now, one of the things is that I never want you to try and rescue people. So many times a client is upside down. They've got a short sale. They've got something challenging. And we end up rescuing them by saying, oh, it's going to be okay, even when we don't know it's going to be okay. And I found that when you rescue them, if you really talk to people, in the short term, they may say, well, yeah, it reassured me, but it didn't really help me. In fact, people didn't feel like, oh, they weren't really willing to listen to it because it was uncomfortable. And usually when we try and rescue people, it's not because we're trying to make them feel comfortable. It's because we're trying to make ourselves feel comfortable. What they're sharing with us brings up emotions in ourselves. And if we can just stop trying to rescue people, stop trying to say it's going to be okay, it'll make a huge difference. Next, I never want you to give advice to anybody until you get their permission. This is true as a real estate professional, as a husband, a father. Because if somebody doesn't want your advice, giving it to them actually makes it worse. Makes them feel like you didn't hear them at all in their conversation, and it invalidates them. So I will tell you, these are two incredibly simple things that will make a huge difference. Say, gosh, if I heard you correctly, this is what you said. Would you like my opinion on what I think you should do? If they don't want your opinion, don't give it. I will guarantee you, you will be better off. I know this is hard because all of us as salespeople want to give our advice. We want to share our opinion. But it will make a huge difference if we're actually able just to listen, paraphrase, and then ask to give permission or get permission before we give advice. Now, this is incredibly effective with your clients, but I will tell you the big payoff is if you can do this with the people you care about, your family. Your spouse usually doesn't want your advice. Your kids don't want your advice. Unless they give you permission to give it to them, it's not going to help. So just try this. And I want you to think about why some agents lead an absolutely incredible top 20% life and others don't. And I always struggle with this. Why do some people sort of run with this information, change their lives, do incredible things, and some people don't? And the more I've worked on trying to figure this out, the more I realize it's the story we tell ourselves. And so I want you to think about what your story is today. If I asked you to, on a scale from 1 to 100, where would you rate police? We'd get a wide variety of responses. Some people would say, oh my goodness, they're absolutely wonderful, they're helpful, they're there to protect you. Some people would give you a story about how they abuse power. And if I went down and asked about what's your opinion of lawyers, politicians, Catholic priests, salespeople, realtors, we'd get this wide variety of different opinions. Here's what I think they are. And so here's my question for you. Which one of these stories is right? Are police corrupt? Or are they wonderful? And now we start, well, yeah, we only understand, well, not all police. And we start thinking about, let me think about a single police person. Well, that's a very much better place to go. Unfortunately, we tend to lump people into these categories, and we put them into things based on our experiences, our history, that may or may not all be totally true and valid. Understand our clients are doing that the same thing. Now, if we understand our clients do this as well, first of all, whatever our clients say, we don't take it personally. And if we don't take it personally, we're going to respond so much better in any situation out there. Remember that things tend to only have meaning because of the story you tell yourself about that event. Now, a lot of people say, well, Greg, what is the real truth here? Well, remember that your truth is made up by the story you tell yourself. And that's all. There's nothing else to it. The results you get depend upon the story you tell yourself. And this is so important to remember. What's the story you're telling you about any given situation on the planet? If you say, gosh, that client's too difficult, too challenging, you're probably going to be right. If you say, gosh, that challenge is going to be a challenge for the client, an interesting challenge for me to work with, I'm going to have to adapt, change. It's the same client. It's just the story that we tell ourselves. The question is, what is right or wrong? Well, remember that truth is relative to our own brains. Now, most of us stay stuck with the stories we tell ourselves. And I want you to ask yourself, what are the payoffs you get for not changing your story? It's amazing. I had a variety of stories about my childhood that I would always used to tell. And I told the story, and it was clever and fun and witty, and I got lots of feedback about these stories from my life. But one time I was talking to my wife, and she said, well, you're never going to change as long as you keep telling those stories that reinforce your actions. And I realized she was right. As long as I told stories from my history that reinforced, well, this is the way I am, I was never going to be changing because I was getting payoff from that. Because people would always ask, well, why are you this way or why are you that way? And I had stories that would justify and explain that were clever. And unfortunately, because I kept telling the story, it stopped me from changing even things that I didn't want to change. So ask yourself, what are the payoffs you're getting for not changing your story, for not changing the way you're thinking about things? And it may be validation. It may be, gosh, it's safer. But if you're really honest here, it's amazing what you can do and the opportunities it can open up if you're willing to challenge your story. And this will make such a big difference for you. And I know this is a little hard today. We've sort of jumped around here and we're dealing sort of with your mindset, but it makes such a huge difference. And if you can start doing this, I guarantee you it'll start changing every aspect of who you are, what you're doing. Now, I really want you to take what we've talked about here today and made sense. Before we go on, first of all, I want to open it up to questions. If you've got any questions, please type them into the box about anything we've talked about here today. And I want to give you a quick little model. Okay, and I see nobody's typing any questions. That always worries me. I've either totally overwhelmed you or I'm not being clear in what I'm communicating. So I want to give you a quick little formula for giving feedback. And this is feedback that you can give to clients, the people that you love. And I want you to do this in, first thing I want you to do is ask people, are you open for an observation? And now, what I want you to do is don't use any what I call defensive words. The you, yours, why, you should, but, all those things. Say, you know what, are you open for an observation? At times, I've experienced, now, give them the behavioral observation. At times, I've experienced rude behavior. And what I want you to do is just talk about the behavior. Now, you know you're talking about them in particular, lack of performance, procrastination, whatever it is. And now just say, and I'm wondering, what's that all about? Now, people say, well, you didn't mention their behavior. You're right. But when you say, well, at times I experience that you're rude, instantly they become defensive, and they stop hearing you. But if you can say, gosh, are you open for an observation? At times, I've experienced rude behavior. And I'm just wondering, what's that all about? You're giving people an opportunity to actually open up and share with you what's really going on in their lives without attacking them, without making them feel threatened. And it is so incredibly powerful that way. I want you to also do this with as few words as possible. Most of us, when we're giving feedback, helping people, we tend to talk because it makes us nervous, and it actually makes things worse. So if you will use that little payoff, it will have huge advantages for you. Now, I want to remind you of some of the things we talked about at the seminar, and I want to go through the Quantum Leap formula. Because one of the interesting things is that over the last few seminars, I've been asking agents, as soon as you leave the seminar, go through the Quantum Leap process. And I've noticed that the agents that actually send me their Quantum Leap letter make incredible progress. And the agents that don't aren't nearly as likely to actually make progress. And so I just want to remind you of this because it makes such a huge difference in actually getting productivity going. So remember the Quantum Leap formula. This is the high velocity formula from U squared. The way you make your Quantum Leap is to write a one-page letter outlining precisely where you want to be at the end of your Quantum Leap. Now, this has got to be clear. You've got to give yourself a clear description of the outcome you want to create, what you want your life to look like. Here's where I'm going to be. Here's what it's going to feel like. Here's what I'm going to be doing. Taste, touch, smell. The more visceral you can make this, the better off you're going to be. The key is to write a one-page letter of exactly what you want your life to look like once you've made your quantum leap, when you're successful, whether that's a year from now, 2 years from now. Then go through, cut out 5 or 10 pictures that visually represent your life after you made your quantum leap. Go through magazines, print something out from online, go to Pinterest and look through all the pictures there. There's so many great visual pictures there. Now, every day for the next 90 days, I want you to sit down and read your letter. Look at the pictures. Spend 10 minutes mentally picturing it as if it were already accomplished. Now, this is so important because it visually goes into your body. If you will mentally, visually create this, feel it, make it come alive in your mind, you will start doing things automatically to move you in that direction. This is incredibly powerful. It pre-programs your mind of what is possible for you. Now, it's not going to change anything that day, but it starts to make sure you're making little progress on a consistent, regular basis. Now, spend that 10 minutes visualizing your success, then spend 5 minutes writing down one or more insights, ideas, or action steps that come about, and what steps you can take towards accomplishing your quantum leap. Then date your notes and say to yourself, I'm making a quantum leap. I know exactly where I'm going and I'm open to the unexpected. And if you will do this, take 10, 15 minutes every day, consistently, visualizing your success, visualizing the person you want to be, it's amazing what you can actually accomplish. So just out of curiosity here, of the people on their line, how many of you have actually written out your quantum leap letter? So that would be just where you go to the question box, say yes, no. And unfortunately, I forgot to write a poll for this. Say, all right, I see, Jim, you've got it. The rest of you are not. So, Jim, I'd love to get your thoughts on, are you doing this consistently, and do you feel like it's making a difference for you? For the rest of you that have said, not me, I want you to pick a time and say, when am I willing to do this by? And then commit to sending me your letter by that time. And, drop me an email or commit here on the call, say, I'm going to have this done by X date. And it'll make such a huge difference for you if you will do that. I want you to be willing to do this. And I see, Jim, you're doing this several days a week. And yes, it definitely makes a difference. I want you to realize how important this is. And the hard part is getting people to actually move forward with this. And yet it makes such a huge difference if you will do it. Next month, remember, go to HH Calls, register for the coaching webinar, and we'll look forward to seeing you each and every month. Also, please post any comments, thoughts about this webinar on Facebook. Drop me an email. And then go out there and make every day count. Make some small, measurable progress steps each and every day. And I look forward to seeing you next month on the webinar, and make every day a day full of joy and happiness. So thank you very much, and God bless.